She didn't post anything. She didn't ask for advice. She didn't make any grand declarations. She simply started making changes. Quietly, deliberately, and entirely on her own terms. While everyone around her was still talking about what they were going to do, she had already begun. No announcement, no audience, just intention. This isn't a story about a dramatic reinvention. It's about something far more rare, silent consistency. Because sometimes the most powerful shift in a person's life isn't the one they broadcast. It's the one they maintain when no one is watching. Hit like, subscribe to the channel, and stay for the full story. A life that worked, but didn't feel right. Clayre Bennett was 38 years old and lived in a modest apartment on the outskirts of a mid-sized city. From the outside, her life looked completely fine. Steady job, manageable routine, bills paid on time. Nobody would have guessed anything was off. But Clayre felt something that had no obvious name. It wasn't burnout. It wasn't sadness. It was a kind of quiet heaviness. The kind that builds slowly when you're living on autopilot. Every day she woke up, showed up, got through it, and did it all over again. No major disasters, no rock-bottom moments. Just a life that kept moving without ever really going anywhere. For years she told herself this was normal. That feeling a little lost, a little tired, a little disconnected from your own days was just what being a responsible adult looked like. She never complained, never reached out, never tried to explain it to anyone, mostly because she didn't know how. Everything's fine was easier than trying to articulate why something felt fundamentally hollow. Her relationship with money was functional but reactive. Her schedule was full but rarely intentional. Her energy went toward keeping things running, not toward building anything she actually wanted. Clayre wasn't in chaos. She was in drift. The weight of a life built for obligation. The real issue wasn't that Clayre was failing. It was that she had built an entire life around not failing. And that structure, responsible, reliable, always on, had quietly become a trap. Every day was pre-decided before she even opened her eyes. Her calendar ran her energy. Her habits were inherited from years ago and never questioned. Her commitments renewed themselves automatically, not because she chose them, but because she'd always said yes. Nothing was wrong, but nothing felt like hers. That tension lived in the small things, the persistent sense of being busy without being fulfilled. A tiredness that sleep didn't fix. A nagging feeling that something important kept getting pushed to later, and later never came. Clayre had confused stability with alignment. She assumed that because her life wasn't falling apart, it was working for her. But a life can hold together on the surface while quietly draining you from within. The deeper problem, she had stopped listening to herself. Every time discomfort surfaced, she buried it in busyness. Every time doubt appeared, she covered it with routine. Not because she was afraid to change, but because change seemed to require explanations. Conversations she wasn't ready to have. Questions she wasn't sure she could answer. And so she stayed still, not out of peace, out of avoidance. She had the quiet belief that any shift in her life needed to be announced, validated, understood by others before it could be real. And since she didn't want to perform transformation, she didn't begin it. But that stillness had a cost, an invisible accumulating cost. The moment everything shifted. Clayre's turning point didn't arrive with drama. There was no argument, no crisis, no moment of collapse. It came on an ordinary Tuesday morning. She was sitting at her kitchen table. Her coffee had gone cold. The apartment was quiet. And in that unusual stillness, she let a thought sit without rushing past it. This is not the life I want to keep living. She didn't say it out loud. She didn't write it down. She just let it be true. For the first time in years, she didn't escape the discomfort. She sat with it. And in that space, something came into focus. She had spent years managing a life built around what was expected of her, not around what she actually valued. And then a simple but significant realization arrived. Organizing your life isn't about doing more. It's about choosing better. That was the break. Not a breakdown. A clarification. She didn't need to burn anything down. She didn't need to explain herself to anyone. She just needed to start making decisions from the inside out. A quiet rule formed itself. If something doesn't bring clarity to my life, it doesn't deserve my energy. Not a financial rule, not a productivity hack, a principle. And from that moment, Clayre stopped asking for permission, from others or from herself, to begin. The silent work. Clayre's transformation didn't look like transformation. That was the point. She didn't announce new goals, she didn't post a fresh start, she didn't explain to anyone what she was doing or why. She simply started making small, deliberate adjustments, one at a time, mostly invisible to everyone around her. The first thing she changed was her relationship with time. She stopped automatically filling every gap in her schedule with something productive. Not to be lazy, but to create space for clear thinking. She began protecting small pockets of silence in her day. No phone, no background noise, no inputs, just quiet. That silence became a tool. From that grounded place, she began reviewing her habits. Not all at once, but gradually. She asked herself honestly, does this still make sense for the life I'm trying to build? If a routine existed only out of habit, she adjusted it. If a commitment drained more than it added, she reduced it or let it go. She didn't announce any of this. She didn't justify it. She simply chose. Her relationship with money shifted too, not through restriction, but through intention. Clayre realized she wasn't an impulsive spender. She was a habitual one. Money left her account the same way it always had, following patterns set years ago that no longer reflected what she actually valued. She started asking a new question before every expense. Does this support the life I want, or just the one I've always had? She didn't cut everything, she aligned everything. And something unexpected happened. She felt lighter. Not because she had less, but because every choice had a reason now. The most significant shift was internal. Clayre stopped needing approval. She no longer looked for external signals that she was on the right track. The steadiness she felt from living in alignment with her own values became enough. That steadiness showed up not in what she said, but in how she carried herself. In her ability to say no without guilt, to hold a boundary without over-explaining, to make a decision and stay with it, even in silence. Her discipline stopped being rigid and became conscious. The results weren't overnight, but they were real. Less mental clutter, less second-guessing, more direction. Life didn't become perfect, but it stopped feeling scattered. Clayre learned something quiet and essential. Organizing your life in silence is one of the deepest forms of self-respect. No applause required, no performance needed. The change held because it came from within. And a transformation that doesn't depend on anyone else's gaze becomes stronger, more durable, more yours. Part 5. What it all meant. Clayre didn't transform her life all at once. She changed her criteria, the internal standards she used to make daily decisions, and that slowly changed everything else. For years, she'd been living as two people, the one the world saw and the one she was quietly becoming exhausted being. When she started making choices that reflected her actual values, those two versions began to merge. That integration brought a kind of calm she hadn't felt in years. Not a perfect, polished calm, a real one. The kind that comes when what you do each day actually reflects what you believe. Money stopped feeling like a source of ongoing tension, not because she suddenly had more, but because it was finally organized around her priorities, not her past habits. Time stopped feeling like something being taken from her. The tiredness that never fully went away, and gradually it did. Her life was still simple, but it no longer felt like quiet chaos on the inside. Clayre learned a lesson that's difficult to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it. When you stop performing your choices for others, you finally start making them for yourself. Most people believe real change requires an announcement, a declaration, a moment people can witness. But the most lasting transformations happen far from the noise, in small decisions, in habits no one notices, in boundaries that are held without explanation. Clayre didn't change to impress anyone. She changed to sustain herself. And that is an entirely different thing. Her story isn't extraordinary. It's deeply human, because most of us at some point have a life that functions but doesn't feel aligned. And the path forward isn't always louder. Sometimes it's quieter. Sometimes you don't need to announce the change. You just need to begin it, in silence, with intention, from the inside. Because when the internal order is real, the external noise loses its power. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. And share one area of your life you know needs more intentional order, even if no one else knows about it. Sometimes the deepest changes are the ones you never announce, but show up for every single day.